cleaning, tying your head wrap, and listen to something gleaming. Shalom, sisters. I'm your host, Tavila, and you're tuning into Virtuous Voices. So, this week's topic is about being quiet. So, as teen girls, we love to talk. We love to talk to friends and family. But sometimes there are times when talking is just not needed. It's best to just be quiet. So, if our parents tell us to do something, or just someone in general, and you have an urge to talk back, it's best to just be quiet. Because in 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 11, it talks about how we must study to be quiet. So, in other words, as young ladies, we must learn to be quiet. 1 Peter 3 verse 4 also talks about how having a quiet spirit is a great price in the sight of God. And being quiet does not mean you are weak. It just shows that you know how to control yourself and your tongue, which is very, very important. So, section 2 is going to be about silence over speaking. So, we need to learn how and when to be quiet in certain situations. Even if it's a situation that we don't like but must do, it's just to be quiet and face consequences of talking back. So, if your parents tell you to do a specific chore like the dishes, and you may not like doing the dishes, and you end up talking back, that could have consequences. You could get your phone taken away, or you may not be able to go with your friends. Just little stuff like that can have consequences. Versus if your parents tell you to do the specific chore you don't like, but you do it with silence instead of talking back, that is the best way to do it. Because instead of just talking back, you can just be like, you know what, my parents are telling me to do this, so let me just do it. Also, keep in mind that just because you may not physically talk back, but you do it in your head, is still talking back. And we must learn not to do this. So in Zechariah chapter 8 verse 17, it talks about how we must not devise evil in our hearts, which is our mind. So, okay, your parents tell you to do this specific chore, but you're over here, you may not say it to them. You may be like, ugh, I don't feel like doing this. But if you do that in your head, it still applies. You must not do it. You must learn to be like, you know what, in your mind and to yourself, you gotta be like, you know what, let me not talk back, nor think of it. Let me just do this chore that I'm supposed to be doing, because it's not like I'm doing anything wrong. So I'm gonna just do it, get done, just like that. Also, Proverbs chapter 17 verse 28 talks about how even a fool that holds what he says is considered wise. So what is a fool? A fool is someone who's, in other terms, stupid, doesn't know anything. But in this case, a fool, he's like, you know what, it might not be the right time to talk or say something. So he's going to be like, you know what, let me just hold what I need to say. And when a fool does that, they're considered wise. And then one that shuts his lips is someone of understanding. So, for example, like you see in the world today, a lot of people just talk and talk and talk. But there are some times when it's like you just need to be quiet and listen to what this other person is saying. For example, like when arguments can start, if whether it's amongst your friends, whoever, sometimes it's best to just hear that person out. You don't need to just talk. Sometimes it's best to just quiet down and listen to what the other person has to say. In Sirach chapter 26 verse 14, it talks about how a silent and loving woman is a gift unto God. And in our case, we're teen girls, right? So this still applies to us. Because when you are silent and loving, you're showing that, you know, you don't always need to talk all the time, and you're listening. It shows that you're well instructed. And this is how we need to be as young ladies. And remember, no matter what situation it is, you do not always need to talk back. Not every situation needs your 2 cents in it. Alright, so section 3 is titled Listen More and Talk Less. So in Ecclesiastes chapter 3 verse 7, It talks about how there is a time to keep silent and a time to speak. And when you speak, always make sure it's an appropriate situation to speak. So there are times when sometimes you just don't need to talk. And there are times when it's like you need to speak up, you need to say something. Um, and also in James 1 verse 19, which happens to be one of my favorite scriptures, talks about how we must be swift to hear and slow to speak. So you don't need to always be speaking first before you can even listen. No, listen first, then speak. Because God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth, not the other way around. Because if you had 2 mouths in 1 ear, it would just be a whole bunch of mess just at your speaking. So that's why it's always important to listen and be quiet before speaking. Proverbs 13 verse 3 also talks about how one who keeps his mouth, in other words, one who doesn't spread all their info, keeps their life. But one who opens his lips wide will have destruction. So you don't want to be talking so much that you end up oversharing and spreading your business to others. Now, there's so many examples, especially in this world, because now we have social media. And sometimes people think oversharing is just when you're saying too much to someone about your personal life, but oversharing also goes into social media, and that can be dangerous. Because I'm going to give an example. So on social media, people will post like they go to this restaurant or this park, and sometimes they'll put like certain times. One thing that's very important is the internet is not always a safe place. Nobody needs to know where you are every Monday at 5 o'clock p.m. No one needs to know that because it's not their business. And if you keep doing that, it could end up turning into something that could end up destroying you or harming you and just not be safe, because the internet, especially today, is not always the safest place. And if you put that, someone could find you and end up finding your location. And because you just kept oversharing on social media, bad things can happen. So that's just one thing to be mindful about, because sharing your location or just yourself in general can be dangerous. So do not post too much info on social media. Be very, very, very mindful. Also, just remember that listening makes you a better friend, sister, daughter, and person overall. Alright, so section 4. Silence is not boring. So, silence is not boring because when you learn to be silent, you understand more things and you listen to or observe things more clearly than if you were speaking. I'm going to give another example. So, let's say if you're talking to a friend and this friend is telling you about, I don't know, some things that they're going through, and they come to you. It's not proper for you to just, after they're done speaking to you, for you to just talk about yourself. No, you're supposed to be helping that person, uplifting them and comforting them and trying to help them solve whatever it is they need help with. And you also want to make sure that you listen to people, because people want to be heard. So if someone is coming to you, your best friend, with something, just listen. You don't need to talk about yourself, because it's not the place to do that. At that time, it's the place to keep silence and just listen to what your friend has to say. And also, when you are silent, it can help you learn many other qualities. And as teen girls, it can help us navigate the world. So, for example, for workplaces, if your boss may tell you to do something, you most likely do not want to talk back. Because if you talk back, you'll be like, well, why do I have to do this? I don't want to work at this and this time. You could end up losing your job. So that's another thing to keep in mind, because if your boss tells you to do something, or like I said again, your parents or an older sibling, just listen and do it, and just keep silence with it. Be like, okay, I may not like doing this, but I'm just going to do it because there's going to be a benefit for me in the future. And also Being silent will help us grow into the young women that we need to be. So now we have reached section 5, which is our closing. So being silent can help us learn so many qualities that are needed. It's okay not to always put in your opinion. Sometimes it's best to just listen. Remember, sisters, sometimes we just need to listen and be quiet. This is your host, Tavila, closing. Virtuous Voices. Shalom.